Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are out there in the world. It's time for another episode of Train Talk from Milepost 141. This is the SoundTraxx Sound Bites. Can't speak today, first day with my new mouth. This is the SoundTraxx Sound Bites podcast for episode 17, I believe we are. But we've changed the numbering system on them. So it's season 2, episode 3 or 4, somewhere around there. I'm not sure exactly. Just look at the description. It'll tell you what number we're on. But anyway, I digress. So welcome again for listening in. And guys, I've got some exciting information and some exciting news for you, and some really cool stuff to share. But first, let's get to the exciting news. Now, as many of you guys know, Norman departed and decided he wanted to go light up stages on cruise ships. I mean, what? But anyway, well, we got a little younger and better at that position now. And we've got Graham, who is actually sitting next to me. This is Graham Zielinski. And he joined us in the early mid-November. So he had about a week and a half, 2-week crash course before we all abandoned him and left him alone to his own devices for Train Fest. So that was a pretty fun experience. But he's been around for a while, but he's finally decided to have the nerve to come up and be on camera for you guys. So we're going to learn a little bit about Graham today and kind of see what makes him tick, what got him into trains, and so forth. So Graham, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So basically, I've lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico my whole life. I got my bachelor's in business administration from UNM, graduated last May. And after that, and during summers, during college, I was working up in Alaska. We'll talk about my Alaska Railroad F7s here that I've been working on shortly. But up there, I was a tour guide for Holland America Princess Cruise Lines on their double-decker domed rail cars that they run on the Alaska Railroad. So that was a pretty cool experience. And then I was finally decided it's time to settle down, get a real career. I didn't want to be done. I got my fix playing on real trains, so now I get to play with model trains at work. So that's pretty awesome.
So what got you into the models themselves? So I mean, where did this interest in trains come from?
So I've pretty much always liked trains my whole life. My grandparents live near here in Durango, Colorado, and so we would always come up and visiting them. And of course, we see that Durango and Silverton all the time, ride it multiple times a year.
What? We have a train?
Yeah, this crazy train that people come and ride here. It's hard to believe. So that kind of got me hooked. So I do all kinds of modeling, anywhere from narrow gauge steam, kind of like what we see in the Durango and Silverton, all the way up through diesels and to the modern day stuff as well. I kind of enjoy all kinds of aspects.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've been collecting a lot of stuff. As long as there's 2 parallel rails, you don't care what's on them.
Yeah, like I picked up a BNSF Jeep 38-2. It's kind of random, but.
And then you've got all the New Mexico rail runners. What
Yeah.
is that? The MP36 that you've got?
Yeah, we'll show that off someday soon. I've got the old True Line Trains MP36
Okay.
with custom PNP and lots of lighting features and different fun things on there.
Okay. So it's always interesting when we talk about a lifelong interest. And I don't know how many of you guys have seen this picture, but I've got a picture of me that really proves that it really is a lifelong hobby. And you're seeing that image right now. This is a picture of me somewhere around, I'm guessing 4, maybe 3, maybe even younger than that because I'm wearing a freaking diaper. But we were running my grandfather's former grandfather anyway. We had a loop of track set up, and it was so funny when we were growing up. My parents, you can't let any of that track and oil and everything get on the table, so we had to lay out the newspapers all over, and then we had the sectional track, and we would run things around the loop. And this picture is of me because I remember at that corner it derailed, and so you can tell I'm very fixated on seeing that model, and I'm trying my best to put it back on the track. And so I've always had that love, and so I fully understand where that comes from. So it's great to have you on board. And so let's talk about it. You're doing support department now, so you're handling all the phone calls and emails. So when you guys call up and ask for support, you're going to get him first. And so he's pretty well equipped. I mean, he's been doing models for quite some time. We just had to get him fine-tuned with the SoundTraxx products, a little bit more familiar with it, because he kind of used a little bit of everything. But obviously he preferred the SoundTraxx stuff, which is part of why he's here wearing the purple shirt.
Yeah.
So what do you think so far?
Basically, yeah, pretty much every model, if I was upgrading sound in it or putting a decoder in it, it was always going to be SoundTraxx. No questions asked, even before I worked here. I just think it's such a great product. Yeah, it's been a really great experience. I love getting to meet everyone I talk to a wide variety of people, and people always have different ideas and different projects, different things that they're working on that I get to help out with and make sure they're all working how they want them to. And then I get to learn from people too, as well. A lot of learning.
There really is. That's an underrated thing, quite frankly, because when you're talking to people and they want to do a specific thing with their models, it gets your brain working. Well, how can I make that happen? And next thing you know, you've got your method on how you want to make it happen. So it certainly is that. And then the other thing is there's a great vast amount of education out there and experience that people will share with you that, well, when I worked on railroad XYZ, railroad whatever, they want to tell you how that railroad did it. And so therefore they share that information with you because they want their models to do the same thing. So it's really kind of a cool two-way street.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but the good news is he was very quick. He picked it up pretty quick. Now, some of you guys, if you've been longtime SoundTraxx users, when Norman joined on, he was very quick as well. So I'm telling you guys, we've had this conversation on this podcast before. The youth of the hobby, they're out there, guys. They really are. They're just doing things differently. Because what was interesting is, Graham, you actually went to the Amherst show last year.
Yep.
So in 24, I barely remember you even coming by. But it was one of those things, you were running around with Michelle and meeting all the people and everything. And so those shows, man, I'm telling you what, that Amherst show is just, it's busy.
We were nonstop. All days.
So, I didn't remember much about, meeting you the first time, but that's just my point, is they come to some of the big shows, but they may not always be able to afford to fly halfway across the country. Like you said, you were from New Mexico,
yep.
And now you're going to Amherst up in Massachusetts, and I'm sure that wasn't a $5 flight.
No.
So a lot of the youth in our hobby they're frugal, they're working at home, and they live on these things, guys. And so YouTube videos like this, podcasts like this, which kind of the same thing, and other ways that people are learning. So we need to reach out to them and get them involved in your clubs and so forth. But guys, the hobby's not dying. They're out there. So with that, well, let's see. Looks like we've got some models here in front of us, and so I'll go ahead and let you first. Women first, ladies first.
Okay. First for the rookies.
There you go. That's probably more politically correct. We'll call it the rookies first. But anyway, it looks like you've got some pretty blue and yellow things here that I don't recall ever seeing around before. So
yeah, so these are old InterMountain F7A and F7Bs. They originally came with another brand of decoder installed in them, non-sound. They always ran pretty well, so I figured, why not? I'm getting into the wide world of Blunami. Ever since I started working here, I didn't actually have any Blunamis personally yet, but one of the horrors, I know.
I'm coming, Elizabeth. I'm coming.
One of the first things that I had done.
You're too young for that reference.
Yeah. George has lots of movie references, and I don't always get them all.
This one's television. Guys, if you get that reference, let us know in the comments.
But that was one of the first things we fixed when I started working here. We got a Blunami installed and a Santa Fe U36B, or U30.
No,
yeah, U23B.
Yeah, it was a 23B.
Numbers are hard. And then, so that was our first adventure into Blunami.
Wait, don't you calculate CVs for people all day?
That's why there's a calculator on my computer.
There you go.
But anyways, and then...
you are the youth of the hobby.
So George was helping me still get comfortable with installs, and then these were the first two that I did completely on my own. So I completely gutted the models, their factory motherboards. They were already 21-pin, but I decided to go with decoder buddies, so then I could access all the lights and know where they were all mapped better. And so they got both, got decoder buddies, 21-pin Blunami decoders, and then scale sound system speakers as well. And then the A unit was kind of fun. InterMountain from the factory had just a little plastic orange transparent housing for what would be a beacon light. And I decided, George is all crazy about lighting, and he's trying to get me hooked on that as well. And so I decided we were able to source one of the Rapido rotary beacon bits, and I added that onto the model as well. So
And that hooks directly up to the decoder, so you don't need to add any resistors or anything. And so you just simply turn the function on.
Yep. So we can take a look.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at it. I'm going to grab this other camera here and kind of take a look at it from a close-up perspective so we can see what you've got going there.
Yeah,
hopefully I get a right angle on this. There we go.
Gives a really cool effect. So we get that beacon going here. You can see it's got actually 4 little LEDs in there that play in a sequence, so it gives a really cool rotary beacon effect. And then, of course, we got our good old headlight. We also have the number boards and the Mars light as well. So kind of some fun lighting features, and for being over 10 years old, these models had a lot of great features for their time even.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the etched metal on the side of the fan grills, the see-through fans. I mean, InterMountain's always done really good work. It's just when they were forced to switch to another brand decoder, it kind of took a little bit of differences away from it, but they really do make good models.
Yeah. Let's fire them up and take them for a little test spin.
Now, you've already consisted these through the Blunami app, have you not?
Yes, I am here using our new Android Blunami app, and I've got them consisted nice and easily. Takes all the hassle of programming an advanced consist out, and makes it much easier to get an A and B set going. Another feature that I actually used in our updated Android app was the CV copy and paste. I know George just did a video on that recently. You can check out if you're interested in that.
That's on our YouTube channel.
That's on the YouTube channel. So what with that feature, I set up the A unit exactly how I wanted it.
You're not selling ice cream. Turn the bell off while you're talking.
So I set up the A unit, programmed all the CVs, the sounds, the horn, the bell, all the lighting, everything, got it all set up. And then I used that CV copy and paste. The B unit's set up exactly the same, so I just copied and pasted that right on over, so it made that processor really quick. So I didn't have to spend all the time repunching in all the CVs I already had done. So.
Well, the reason I pointed out that they were already consisted is because you're going to run them, but there's a 2 or 3 inch gap right between there, so they're going to run together. Just want to let everybody know who's watching on the video version that he's consistent. He's not running 2 throttles on his app there. He's actually got them consisted. I know you're not doing a screen record, but you guys have seen a lot of these, where we've talked about consisting using the Blunami app, things like that. So it's not anything that you necessarily have to see per se. But if you're not familiar with that, be sure to go check out those previous videos we've done on our YouTube channel talking about Android consisting and even the Apple consisting. The reason is that eventually once this Android version is finished, it's actually going to be ported over and replace the Apple version, which I can't wait for. But I know they're working on some minor little internal workings and adding one more feature to that, and then that'll go and replace with the Apple, which is what I have here in front of me. So that'll be a pretty exciting change.
Yeah, I'm an iPhone user, and I can't wait to have all those Android features.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you, it's amazing. So anyway, let's go ahead and run them. Now you can sell ice cream again because you can turn your bell on since you're about to run. I'll move my hunk of junk back here in a minute and let you. So we'll get you started, and then we can couple them up. So
yeah, but just to see, also showing that I have not done any speed matching to these models.
Yeah, out of the box, they're going to
run just fine together. Added a little bit of momentum, but nothing else major done for the operation of the locomotives.
Yep, and they're running pretty smooth together. And I mean, the reality is that in the real world, there will be some coupler bump and buck.
Yeah.
Because even in the real world, if you hook up, 2 locomotives, they don't always load up the same.
Yeah.
And especially if you go to like some GEs versus EMD, they're bumping and bucking all the time because they load up quite differently. And so the crews always complain about it. But the difference is we as modelers don't always see it because we're standing in a location and watching the train pass. And so we hear some bouncing and banging and so forth. And a lot of times it's the freight cars, but sometimes it's actually the locomotives bouncing and bucking back and forth. The difference is, like I said, we don't see it because as the train passes us and we're filming it or taking pictures or whatever the case is, we don't really see that bucking. And so a little bit of motion is going to be okay. But for the most part, once you get to a speed, those two locomotives run smoothly. So if you were to run those on a consist, pulling a train, granted, instead of sitting on a tabletop light, they're going to work together as a great pair.
Definitely always, you always see a big difference when you add a train. People tend to get caught up with speed matching a lot.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of questions with it. But using the newer back EMF decoders, you don't really need to speed match as critically as you used to.
And this is an example of two of the same model, essentially the same models from the same manufacturer. So yes, they're going to run pretty close right out of the box. But there's a lot of times, and you guys have seen this in my videos, even here on the podcast, I did a video where I had 3 locomotives. 2 were Athearn Genesis, probably about 7-10 years apart, and one was a Proto 2000 all GP38s. No speed matching was done, and they all ran together perfectly. I mean, you would have never noticed if I hadn't told you they were from different manufacturers. So that's always the kind of the way I look at it. So, but those are nice. They did a good job with those.
Let's see. I know you teased this model on 1 or 2 podcasts ago, right?
Yeah, I think it was the last one. I teased this one. I was working on it. I was trying to get some. There's dog hair on it. But anyway, I was teasing this one a little bit ago, and I'm just going to move the camera out of the way for the moment. But this is I know a lot of you guys know me as a diesel modeler, and for the most part, that's primarily what I do. But I do enjoy kind of, maybe not to the extent of Graham, but I do enjoy all kinds of models, and I do love steam. But part of why I got into diesels was early on, when you're 14, 15, 16 and you're going to the store. Now, we're different generations. When I went to the hobby store, the Athearn Blue Box models were about $25, $30 versus a $200 model nowadays. But all that detail I had to add, and so I had to learn how to do that. But anyway, my point being is I would go to the store and I could get a new locomotive model for $30.
Yeah.
Or I could order, at the time, it was a River Osi was the only real major manufacturer of American plastic steam locomotives, which had dealings with IHC and other companies. And the quality varied quite a bit because steam engines were, not as prevalent. Or then you had some Bachmann ones, which had that really flat pancake motor that a lot of people, and it didn't really run very well. So it was like, okay, well, what do I want to pick? Do I want to pick steam or do I want to pick diesel? Well, me being young, impressionable kid, wait, a train I can see outside. And so I got into the diesels because they were more, I can't even speak again, less expensive, and they worked really well out of the box. I mean, those old Athearn Blue Box, I still have several of them that are workhorses on the layout. I mean, so they're still running. I just don't talk about them much here. But back in those days, I had to add all the detail, and I actually enjoy that kind of stuff. And so, anyway, fast forward, and then Bachmann released their Spectrum series. And their Spectrum series was really the first time we saw high-quality models of steam locomotives in plastic, and that spawned a whole generation of new stuff, including some of that stuff. So we have a lot of thanks to Bachmann for that, and Lee Riley, who was spearheading that part of it. And so with the Spectrum series, they got to the point where they started adding a lot more detail onto the models. Instead of everything being cast on, a lot of it was added on. And this is a Bachmann USRA standard light mountain, and believe it or not, some of this decal work is actually factory paint, which is amazing.
Yeah,
because they did a really good job. It even has all the cab detail and the nomenclature under the cab. It wasn't just the cab number, because if you look at some of the other brands that have done Missouri Pacific Steam, they literally slap the cab number on it, put the cab number and the name on the tender, and that's it. But there's not really a lot of this, and I point this out because I have a friend of mine in Louisiana who is adamant about having the proper decals on it. So when I was doing some side decal work for him, he's actually texting me right now. Come on, Pat, I'm shooting a video. Anyway, when I was doing that, he was like, oh, I got to have the right nomenclatures and the lettering and everything on the side. But anyway, I'm digressing a little bit away. So they did a really good job. But anyway, with the Spectrum stuff, it opened up a whole new world for steam engines. And so with this particular one, this was such a well-done model, I decided, well, in my world, I'm trying to model 1978. And so what I decided was that this is going to be kind of the precursor / model of the UP passenger steam program, because the Missouri Pacific, when they were absorbed into the Union Pacific, actually most of the MOPAC people were running the company.
Wow, I didn't know
which
that.
was interesting because they integrated a lot. So it was really Missouri Pacific with Union Pacific lettering. And I know a lot of friends who retired from the UP that were Missouri Pacific hoggers and office workers and things like that. So they got graduated in management. But anyway, so I decided that in my world, this is how I can justify having a high quality steam engine. So this project that I started working on recently started life as, this is the third decoder I put in this model.
Yeah.
So years and years ago, before I donned the purple shirt, I had put an original Tsunami in it and put a speaker in the tender. It's under the the coal load here, and I added some minor detail parts. And you can kind of see, if on the back, I'm going to grab the other camera here and kind of show that on the back here, you can kind of see where I've got some of the coal where it's spilled over the edge on the back of the tender deck. But then there's also some very, very thin of that two-part epoxy that people use to model water that I've put over the tender to simulate water overspill from the tender overflow. And what was interesting is when I did that at the previous train club, the guys were coming over and said, "That's really cool. Is that a trademark or can I do that?" I was like, I don't care. Do it. I mean, if it makes your model look better, why not? Right?
I had never thought of doing I thought of the overspilled coal, but never the water spill overflow.
Well, it's interesting. If you watch some of the videos, even of the current, like the 844 and the 4014, whatever, when they would run it, they've got a pipe going in there, and then you can see water splashing up and over. So it does splash out of there a little bit.
We can drive down the street and see that.
Exactly. Well, and that's where you have to be close enough when they stop up at the water to take on water, because they've got the water pouring in, and it splashes over. And if you get the right seat, you can see the water spilling over the side.
Or if you're too close, you get a shower.
Yes, there you go. Well, and I'm sure some of those guys have gotten their share of showers. So... But anyway, so this started life with an original Tsunami. And then when we did Tsunami 2, I took it and upgraded it. And, at the time I had done some minor detail work, very basic stuff. I had, put the class lights on the front, did the updated bell and a headlight. And you can see I've got some hoses here on the front. And I did a tender deck. So, it was very, very minimal at best. Oh, and I replaced the reverser on the other side with a brass casting. So a lot of those type of detail work. But the tender got a lot more work, believe it or not, because the rear light is a special casting, a brass casting. The trucks were changed out. There's a toolbox on the side. And then, of course, like I said, the weathering work. The ladder on the back is actually a replaced brass casting. Things like that, trying to just help make it. There's some brass castings on the back for like the air hoses, the coupler cut bars, and all this stuff on the back. So did a little bit of work. Well, this time I decided I wanted to revisit the model again, but add some more lights because, of course, I did, right?
Yeah.
So what I did was I went in and started looking at it and adding things out and adding new lights. And what I realized is I quickly needed 8 lighting outputs. So with the DBX 9000 already between the loco and tender, I needed to figure out a way to wire those lights to back and forth. So what ended up being was initially a small upgrade and adding some lights turned into a full 1472 This model was basically stripped down. There's probably 2 pounds of brass detail parts on this thing now because I went in and completely detailed the cab interior, which I hadn't done prior. Replaced the crew, so now I've got a more animated crew, for lack of a better term. They look more human rather than plastic casting with their hands on their laps. Replaced the whistle, replaced the pop-off valves. I added these boiler jacket clamps along the top, which is a part that my friend Jimmy Booth at PBL said a lot of people forget to model that. And I said, oh, that's a neat little detail, and it really does add to the look of the model.
Very apparent when you take a look at it.
Very evident. And so added the snifter valves on the front. And then, like I said, there's a ton of there. But then I replaced the injectors on both sides with brass castings because the Bachmann castings left a little bit desired, especially with today's world. And then I completely rewired the model. So now the decoder is no longer in the tender. I actually went in and cut the weight a little bit and made room because the way they designed this model was actually pretty great. Yeah. Because the motor sits here and it drives a belt, and the belt runs down to a gear that runs the wheels. And so all of this was pretty much weight, which is great if, for pulling power, but I really didn't need all of that weight. And I didn't remove that much. It's probably an ounce, maybe 2 ounces tops. So it's still a pretty hefty model, but I was able to put the decoder with a full decoder buddy, not one of the mini ones, the full decoder buddy up front here. So now I solved the problem of having all those wires having to run back and forth to control 8 lighting outputs, because the only wires going to the tender for my track pickup, which I added track pickup on both tender trucks. So left and right wheels on the tender pickup, the back headlight, the speaker that was back here, and track power, and then a current keeper.
Yep.
And the current keeper shares a lighting output with the function common. So that made that easy.
One less wire.
So of the 9 wires, 7 of them are used. And now I get all 8 lighting outputs. So let's see what we got, shall we?
Yeah.
So
take it for a spin.
We're going to go ahead now. I put my mute.
Get the camera so we can.
Yep. I did shoot some B-roll on this, so we have some of the behind the scenes. I got to get it moving so I can get the.
I'll move
the mute off.
Noisy boxcars out of the way.
Yeah, get those boxcars out of the way. So you can see I've got a headlight on the front of the locomotive, and this is a brass casting. Most of the brass castings came from Precision Scale. So most of that stuff came from there, and what I didn't have, I just went ahead and ordered it again. So ordered a lot of stuff. So guys, if you're looking for brass detail parts for steam locomotives, check them out. But let's talk about lights. So the first thing is I've got a firebox light. And what's really cool is I've got firebox light on either side. This is an orange LED, one on either side. And those are wired together. And so they shine down and kind of give the illusion of like the ash pan and everything is visible. But then I've got a separate one in the cab, and you guys can see the B-roll coming up on the screen here, that I've got one in the cab. And I wanted that one to be really bright. So that's actually on its own circuit. And is actually opposite. So when we talk about lights being phase A and phase B, this is what I did. So the firebox lights on the outside are phase A, and the one in the cab is phase B. So they're not flickering together. They're flickering a little bit differently. But I wanted that to be bright because I remember years ago, the Durango and Silverton, that funny railroad that we have here, they had done a night train for their crew. But what they would do is they would take the town folk, they would go up early in the morning, pick up the folks in Silverton, drive them down for the day, and then ride them back up there at night, and then they would deadhead basically home, which came to the end of the year party for the operating crew. I haven't done this in probably 10 years, but it was one of the things that I remember. And when we got on the High Line at night, now this is like 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, because the train got back at 1 o'clock. Wow. And they opened the firebox, and you would swear the evil gods of hell had unleashed, because such bright red and the smoke and the steam all around there, and it was just such a great looking image that's why I wanted that light in that cab to be pretty bright. So I did that. But this was the tricky part. Now, again, thanks to my friend Jimmy Booth, he taught me how to do some drilling, how to drill these out. So these are brass castings for the class lights. but I didn't know how to open them up because they were solid. So he taught me how to open them up, and then I lit them.
I know this is what you were most excited
This
for.
is the coolest thing in the world, in my opinion. So I'm going to go over here now. I'm going to turn on the class lights. Now you can see on the top here, I've got white class lights. And that would, as we've talked about in our videos on our YouTube channel, white class lights indicate an extra. So this technically would be extra 5305 because the white indicates the extra, the train number is 5305. So, you know, noisy boxcars wait for extra 5305 to pass. When you see my train go, now you know you're clear. But this is the really cool part, folks. Watch this. When I extinguish the white class lights, and then I turn on the green class lights. So I've got two LEDs inside this class light casting. One of them is green, one of them is white, and they are glued together head to head and then wired in, and they're controlled by separate lighting outputs. So the green in the steam era would indicate this was a scheduled train, because in that time they did scheduled trains. So it's a scheduled train with a following section. So if you were waiting for train, and I don't know, we're going to say train number 114 or whatever it is, you would see the green class lights and know that this is the scheduled train, but don't go anywhere because there's another train following behind 15 minutes. So now I can take this to an op session and properly designate or show off the colors. You could also do flags, things like that as well. So I may put some flag holders up there also, but the cool of the colored class lights, I thought that's
really awesome.
That is really awesome.
You don't hardly see that feature on any models.
No.
People are doing.
No, not on their own. I mean, you can get some factory installed models that have those lights, but they're not like that, and not on a steam engine anyway.
Not at all.
So with that, the other lights I did the running lights, which will actually light up kind of around the locomotive, and it helps the engineer and the fireman watch the running gear, make sure things are moving, and also kind of watch the ground, make sure everything's moving. So you can kind of see them here on the side. I also shot some B-roll, so that may be inserted in as well, because it's kind of hard to see here with the big light behind it. So I'll move it over here. And then I've got a cab light inside of there as well, so you can actually illuminate the inside of the cab. So I was actually, like I said, I was really, really happy with the way this model turned out. I ran into one minor issue, and you're aware of this.
I was wondering if you're going to talk about how many decoders or current keepers it took.
Well, that wasn't it. I did make a wiring error where I had mixed up my current keeper wires going back, and it damaged the decoder and the current keeper. So, guys, just double check first off, but second of all, it happens. I mean,
to all of us.
Yeah, so things can happen, but that wasn't what I was talking about. This is a model that I've run for a long time. Like I mentioned, this is its third decoder.
Yeah.
Not because I needed to replace it, but because it's just I want to upgrade to the newest stuff, and especially with this being Blunami.
Yeah.
But what happened was, sort of what started this project was not a necessary project, but what happened was I was showing my layout to a neighbor who had no idea what trains were, thought they were the thing you run around the Christmas tree. And this and another model that you guys have seen in some of our YouTube videos were in a box, and something happened. I was grabbing something, and that box took a dive and broke some parts off of it. And so with Blunami, I decided, you know what, I want to upgrade this, and so that's what started it. But that had been sitting in the box for over 2 years. So when I started running this model to test run it, it would run, but it was surging. Yeah. There was some issues with it, and the chuff everything wasn't smooth like it had been. And I'm like, oh, come on, this is a model I've run for years. So take it apart and look at it, run it and do it again. Well, there was two factors going on. First off, I found there was a lot of older grease and gunk that had been put into the axle, where the axle set in the casting, and that was gunked up, and that was causing excessive resistance, I guess, to the wheels turning and causing all kinds of problems. So took that apart, took some rubbing alcohol and Q-tips and cleaned all that stuff out. And then while I was there, I figured I might as well clean up the excess oil in the gearbox, because that's probably where it came from. Yep. Cleaned up the gearbox a little bit, and then it became very noisy. It was smooth.
It was running just fine.
It was running just fine, but then it got really, really noisy. And so when you were running at a specific speed, you'd hear this grinding.
It was always worse than forwards.
Yes, it was always worse than forward, and so it was driving me nuts. Well, I'm going to throw one more shout out to my friend Jimmy Booth, because to the rescue, he just got a new gear grease.
Yeah.
And he said, pack it full. And so I did that, and now it's so much quieter.
It made a world of difference.
And it made a world of difference. And so before I forget, I'm going to put it up on the screen here, but this is called Trick Synthetic Tech Ultra 2K Gearbox Lubricant. It's a brand new thing he added to his website, p-b-l.com.
Yeah, and it goes to show you how important that taking care of lubrication and things on your model is.
You have to maintain your model. So the point is that, you know, this ended up being a little bit more work than what I initially had planned, but I'm telling you, it's worth the extra effort, because now I have a model that runs. So we're going to go ahead and take it for a spin and show you how it runs. So we're going to start moving it forward. We're going to go ahead and increase the throttle. This is a nice smooth running model, and you can hear there's no gear noise out of it. And I've got one of our 25 by 40 speakers in the tender underneath the coal load here. Now we'll bring it to a stop. Now we're going to back it up. And of course I have to do my whistle signals. We're going to go ahead and crank it up a little bit. So you can hear that dynamic exhaust kicking in, because as the locomotive is accelerating, you're hearing that chuff get really loud. And then once we settle into speed, and I did reduce the throttle, but you're hearing that chuff back off a little bit. But you can see how smooth it is, and how smooth it's running. Oops. We'll bring it to a stop. Oh, I forgot. The other thing I did was I put semi-scale wheels on the front. So since the pilot wheels are visible, and you can tell they're not the thick ones like the regular 110s. So they're 88 scale wheels. So that was fun, because I had to take the wheels off the axle, cut the axle, put the wheel back on it, and hope I didn't cut it too short.
Now you need an excursion train.
I actually have that. So there's a few companies out there. Rapido's done some Missouri Pacific passenger coaches, a diner. They did a dome that I have. And then, of course, Walthers has done some passenger coaches. So, like I said, You're
already ready to go.
I've already got. That's what I used to run with this. Now, as the new models have come out, I've been getting it and putting those in there. But I also have a Walthers heavyweight that I took apart, detailed years ago, and rebuilt up as a Missouri Pacific business card. I believe it's number 8 that I did, and that'll hold the rear of the train. So
perfect. It's
a mix of the Eagle colors, the mix of the regular standard Jenks blue, and then what's really fun was on my personal YouTube channel, which is Goalie George on YouTube, just one word. I did a video was called A Day at 20th Street. And what I did was, it wasn't this steam locomotive, it was the other one that's broken that I need to fix now. The 460 that I paired up and coupled with a GP15 and then ran that train as a surprise excursion.
Yeah, very fun. And that's the beauty of model railroading. You can do whatever you want.
I can do whatever we want.
It's your own world.
That's exactly right.
As long as you're having fun.
Yep. So, well, we've gone a little bit. We're right at the 30-minute range. We've kind of talked about the Blunami a little bit, and these are both Blunamis. But like I said, guys, these are also full DCC decoders as well. So you're not forced to use the throttles if you don't want to. You can still use your DCC throttles if you so choose. But I'm telling you, take a look at this consisting, because this is really the way to go. Because now, when I want to run this with, say, a Jeep 15 or maybe a GP38 to pull that excursion train, now I can consist them in a matter of seconds, and boom, I'm off to the races without having to go, well, wait a minute, I got to do this and I got to do that, and now you're trying to mismatch.
CB 19, 21, 22,
245, 246, and 247. and I already can do that with this model now.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, steam engines for the most part ran independent, so I can go to let's say my friend Pat's layout and operate, because he models 1940, 1930. It's Louisiana short line. He has a railroad he calls the Arkansas Midland,
Okay.
which
Perfect.
is part of the Missouri Pacific lines in his world. But it's small steam engines, so he's got a bunch of the decapods, 280s. I just got done doing some lettering for a 280, a decapod, and a 440. And he loves those short trains, 40-foot cars. I can go over to his house and run trains, and I'll fit right in.
Yep.
Or I can do it as a modern day 1978 excursion. So just having fun, guys, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So and because the Blunami is so easy to use, it helps make it more fun. So I definitely encourage you guys to try it out. And so, well, with that, any last minute thoughts or comments?
I think I'm good. All right.
Awful quiet for your first one. I'm just kidding. You were good. So anyway, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up this edition. So with that, guys, I hope this was fun, enjoyable. Hopefully, for those of you listening on the audio side, we were doing our best to describe everything as we're showing it. But if you want to see some of this stuff, be sure to check out the YouTube video version of it so that you can see some of the models that we're showing off with the lights and how they all operate and so forth. So a lot of cool things built into the models, and so we look forward for seeing what's coming up next time. So with that, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Now, our YouTube channel, we post a lot of informational videos about our products, whether it's basic information like how to find the user's guides, which we did not too long ago, all the way up to, hey, here's how to build an advanced consist. A lot of that information is on our YouTube channel, and we're posting video content every week to try to help you guys enjoy operating your SoundTraxx products just a little bit more. There's also some generic educational videos, such as just what is DCC? How does it work? Those are in the webinar series, which basically are educational, because we want you to have a great knowledge foundation so that when you're running your trains, when you understand how all the stuff works, now you're no longer intimidated or afraid of it. Now you can just go out and run your trains and enjoy it. So be sure to check those out. Give this video or audio a thumbs up, a like. We appreciate your ears, borrowing your ears for this short little period of time. And we'll have to start keeping projects going for the next time. I think I may have secretly hinted at what my next project to show off is.
Oh, yeah. Guess we'll have to wait and see.
So with that, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see y'all next time.